The fire raged like the judgment of God. It devoured homes, churches, dreams. And as the great Chicago fire swallowed the city, one man stood frozen, not in fear, but in regret. He had just preached to thousands, and he had ended with the words, "Go home and think about what you've heard." Many did, but some never came back. That night, Dwight L. Moody's heart broke, but from those ashes, God birthed a fire that would never be put out. The fire raged like the judgment of God. It devoured everything in its path: homes, churches, businesses, even hope. In the heart of Chicago, October 8, 1871, as flames licked the skyline and screams filled the night, one man stood motionless, his soul burning even more fiercely than the fire before him. It wasn't the physical loss that haunted him. It was the echo of a single sermon, a sermon that ended with the words, "Go home and think about what you've heard." And many did, but some never got the chance. That night, Dwight L. Moody, the poor shoe salesman turned evangelist, watched the city crumble. But within him, something else was being built. A fire from heaven, a conviction so powerful that it would not only reshape his ministry, but touch millions of souls across continents. But this fire wasn't where the story began. It started in a basement, and with a boy who couldn't even speak properly. Dwight Lyman Moody was born in Northfield, Massachusetts, in 1837, the sixth of 9 children. His father, a heavy drinker, died when Dwight was just 4 years old, leaving the family in crushing poverty. His mother, overwhelmed, did what she could, raising her children to fear God, but rarely able to feed them more than beans and bread. School was a luxury. Moody's education ended early. He could barely read or write, and he spoke with a stammer that made people snicker when he tried to speak publicly. And yet, deep inside, something stirred. He wasn't religious. Not yet. He didn't even like church. But he was ambitious, determined to make something of himself. At 17, he left for Boston to work in his uncle's shoe store. The deal was simple. He could work. If he attended church every Sunday, he didn't mind. Until one day, something changed. His Sunday school teacher, Edward Kimball, entered the store trembling, nervous, unsure. He had come to share Christ with Moody, but hesitated. He paced outside the store, praying. Finally, he walked in, found Dwight in the stockroom, and said, "Dwight, I wanted to tell you how much Christ loves you." Simple words, but they shattered something deep in Moody. That night, a prayer was whispered, and a soul was saved. He never forgot that. One man, one visit, one conversation. It lit a spark. After his conversion, Moody moved to Chicago to sell shoes. But his heart wasn't in sales anymore, not really. He started teaching Sunday school in the slums, gathering poor, unkempt, illiterate children. He had no training, no credentials, but they came because he loved them. He'd walk through alleys, knock on doors, plead with parents, "Let your children come." And they came, sometimes 500 at once, crammed into basements, listening to the stammering young man with the burning eyes. Moody's heart broke for them, for the forgotten, the lost, the overlooked. It wasn't just ministry. It was warfare. He preached Christ to them like a man on fire. But the churches didn't welcome him. He wasn't ordained. He didn't sound polished. His grammar was atrocious. One critic said, "Moody's preaching is like an axe that's never seen a grindstone." Another called him a religious nuisance. But souls were being saved. And children, broken, hungry children, were learning to pray. Still, Moody himself struggled with doubt. "I can't speak right," he once said. "I don't know the Bible well enough. I'm not fit for this." But God doesn't call the equipped. He equips the called. In 1871, Moody's Sunday school had grown into a full church, thousands strong. His reputation was spreading. He was invited to preach in major cities, and revival followed him like a shadow. But he still preached like a beggar, pleading for souls. On October 8, 1871, he stood before a packed audience in Chicago. His text was from Matthew. "What then shall I do with Jesus, who is called the Christ?" He delivered it with power, but at the end, he said something he would come to regret for the rest of his life. "I want you to take this question home with you," he said. Think about it. Next week, we'll come back and decide what to do with Jesus. The people nodded, murmured, filed out. Hours later, the sky turned red. The Great Chicago Fire had begun. It tore through the city like a living beast. Wooden buildings exploded. Families fled barefoot. People burned alive in the streets. The church gone. His home gone. Friends dead. But worst of all, many in the audience that night never came back. He had told them to wait. He had told them they had time. And they didn't. Moody collapsed, not from smoke or exhaustion, but from grief. I will never again give an audience a week to decide, he wept. If they're lost, let them be lost with me warning them with all my might. The fire had destroyed more than buildings. It had demolished his complacency. From then on, he became a different man. Urgent, desperate, relentless. He no longer cared about crowds. He cared about souls. He once shouted from a pulpit, "I must speak as if this were the last sermon I'll ever preach." Because one day it would be. He began traveling, not to cities, but nations. To England, to Ireland, to Scotland. His accent confused them. His bluntness offended them. But his message broke them. At a small chapel in London, a young man named Henry Morehouse challenged Moody. "You preach on the wrath of God," he said, "but have you preached on his love?" Moody had never heard of such boldness, but he invited Henry to preach. Henry opened to John 3, verse 16. He preached on it again the next night, and the next. Moody sat in awe as this teenage preacher declared, "God loves the worst of sinners. He gave his son not for good, but the guilty." Something shifted in Moody's soul. He wept, and when he took the pulpit again, he was different. He no longer preached to warn men away from hell. He preached to pull them into the arms of Father. His sermons became filled with tears. "God loves you," he would cry, "and he wants you tonight, not tomorrow, not later, now." The crowd became floods. Tens of thousands came. Men collapsed under conviction. Women sobbed at altars. Children prayed aloud in schoolyards. Factories closed down during lunch hours just so Moody could preach. He filled the largest halls in the world, without microphones, without celebrity, without social media. Just a man, with one sermon, preached 1,000 ways. Come to Christ. Now, by the late 1800s, Moody had become one of the most influential evangelists in history. He founded the Moody Bible Institute. He trained thousands of preachers and missionaries. He wrote books that went across oceans. But he never became proud. He still stumbled over words. He still said ain't. He still prayed like a child. But he spoke like a prophet. His meetings drew Charles Spurgeon, Ira Sankey, F.B. Meyer, even presidents and kings. Yet he never changed his message. At one revival, a reporter asked, "Mr. Moody, what's your secret?" He held up his Bible and whispered, "I just tell them what he said and plead with them to believe it." He preached in fields, warehouses, rail yards, anywhere. He once traveled to a prison and told the inmates, "There's not a man in here so bad that Jesus wouldn't bleed for you again." One fell to his knees, shaking. So did the rest. In 1899, Moody's health began to fail. His heart weakened, but his fire never dimmed. In one of his last letters, he wrote, "I am not discouraged. I want to live as long as I am useful. But when my work is done, I want to be up and off." On December 22nd, 1899, surrounded by family, Dwight L., Moody looked upward and smiled. "I see earth receding. Heaven is opening. God is calling me." And then he was gone. The man who stammered. The man who sold shoes. The man who thought he was too poor, too dumb, too broken to be used. He died having preached to over 100 million people. Before radio, before television, before YouTube. Not one of them was ever told to wait. Dwight L. Moody's life was not built on charisma. It was built on urgency, a fire in his soul, lit by a regret that he turned into purpose. He learned that every soul matters, that no moment is guaranteed, that one conversation can ripple into eternity. He didn't wait until he was ready. He didn't wait until he was perfect. He just went, And God met him in every broken sentence and stumbling word. If God can use a stammering shoe salesman to preach to millions, what's stopping you? Burn bright. Speak now. Friend, you who are reading this, you may think you're not qualified. You may think your past disqualifies you. You may think your voice doesn't matter. But what if someone is waiting for your one sermon, your one conversation, your one "God loves you" whispered into the middle of their darkness? What if the difference between heaven and hell for someone is you? Don't wait for the next Sunday. Don't wait to feel ready. Don't wait for the fire to come. Be the fire. Be like Moody. Speak. Plead. Weep if you have to. But don't stay silent. This is your time. Your pulpit may not be a church. It may be your kitchen, your WhatsApp, your street corner, your classroom, your Instagram. But the message is the same. Come to Christ. Now. And don't let anyone walk away thinking they still have time, because some won't.